and welcome to the ESTR Kitchen. This is a new episode of the Recite book, and today we will have Nicolò Brembilla. And first, before starting, we have to thank UCB for sponsoring this episode, and it's a real pleasure for me to introduce Nicolò because he's a friend of myself, and so I'm very happy to have him here, and I'm very happy because he will do a different talk for this session of the kitchen. So he will explain you the recipe to initiate the startup, and Nicolò. He's a lecturer at the University of Geneva, Switzerland, and he's also the CEO and co-founder of a startup, the Enikö. And before the startup, he has a very long experience, but he's still in the laboratory. He established the laboratory at the University of Geneva in investigating IL-17 related diseases. So it's a real pleasure. And Nicolò, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Anna. I will try to share my presentation. Oops. So do you all see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, perfect. So that's a pleasure. Thank you very much again for inviting me to present this lecture today. As Anna was saying, it's going to be a little bit different lecture. It's not going to be very deep in terms of science, but it's actually, to my point of view at least, very interesting. I'm going to try to give you the perfect recipe to try to initiate a startup. But before going into that, I would like just to show you a little bit who I am. Anna said a few things, but actually I am today, I have been spending almost 18 years as an academic researcher, and I'm today still a lecturer at the University of Geneva and the University Hospital of Geneva. So typical medical researcher background, master in medical biotechnology, PhD in immunology. But around the year 2020, I started getting much more interested in also another part of the science, which is the application of science into business. And therefore, I took some education, but especially my most important education was to actually put myself into the venture and create a startup, which is actually a spin-off from the University and the Hospital of Geneva called Enikö. You find here the logo and the website if you want to get in. And what do we do in Enikö? Very, very briefly, we basically develop stem cell innovative therapeutics for the treatment of ulcerative skin disorder, and in particular chronic ones. But today, I'm going to take out the hat of a lecturer at the university, so academic researchers, and rather put the hat of the entrepreneur and try to guide you through what I do believe are the main building blocks that would help any one of you that has an idea or have a discovery in the lab to reflect whether it is worth to initiate or not a new venture, so a startup. So I will start by telling you what I think is a startup. And for me, a startup is a bridge from academic labs to real practical application. We know all very well the academic environment, the research that is done in the academia. So this is knowledge, discovering, innovation, education, empowerment. So a lot of very talented people and a lot of incredible ideas are and come in the academia. But often these ideas stay confined there. They realize into the form of manuscript or in some special application within the host institution, within the hospital, but don't generalize to the real world. And this is exactly what the startup does. They take these ideas, these highly risky ideas, actually, and they drive through the development of this idea in trying to de-risk and to create at the end a tangible product out of the idea that can have an impact actually on the society, on the care. So bringing innovation to real life. Sometimes startups are very successful in the sense that can bring real innovation to the real life. In other cases, they de-risk a project till when this is sufficiently attractive for big pharma that can then take over and investigate. For instance, this is the typical case in the development of a new drug, and can take over with the later clinical trials, which cost really a lot. So a startup brings innovation to real life and also fill a lot of market gaps, but very important too, the startup also promote the economic growth. Many people, they say that 90% of startups fail, but actually during the venture, startup create a lot of value. And this is an example from Switzerland, where I come from, in terms of work at least, regarding the key facts in 2022. So in Switzerland only, and Switzerland has 8 million people, so more or less the size of New York state. In Switzerland, the startup attracted $1.4 billion of new investment. There were about 20 merger and acquisition and licensing agreements, which means that big pharma bought about 20 startups or 20 ideas. There have been 31 new ventures and more than 1,200 jobs created by startups. And this also, there have been about 47 new drugs that were approved by Swissmedic. So a lot of economic impact by startups. So now let's go a minute to the lab. So in the lab, researchers, basically they work on an unmet need. But if you wanna create a viable business, you have to go over the unmet need. An unmet need in terms of business is a gap in existing product or services. And when we translate it into medical application, this is typically a disease for which there is no treatment, or a diagnostic tool which is not very efficacious or very expensive. So these are the, generally speaking, the broad unmet need. Now you have to understand, if you want to really launch yourself in a venture, that you should look at the unmet need from different perspectives. Because the unmet need is not only this, the one that you most likely see, but you have to look at all stakeholders around and try to define what is the global unmet need. I provide you, for instance, an example here on the right side. This is a table that has been presented to the European Medicinal Agency, so a regulatory agency, payers community meeting. And if you look at here, you see the perspective of payers, insurance, for instance, or government, when looking at an unmet need. And look, for instance, here, the condition-related public expenditure per patient has a much higher weight compared to an impact of the life expectancy. So you do see the unmet need, the perception of the unmet need is very different depending on the stakeholder you speak with. And having a good, you in the lab, you most likely identify another need, and you most likely work on a solution that would solve the problem. This is in business called the problem-solution fit. And this is extremely well done in academia. We have all the tools for doing that. Let's imagine there is a disease which has no cure. You study the physiopathology of the disease, you find a target which is modified, and then you start working on this that becomes the solution of your problem. But when you speak about taking now this solution and bringing it to the real market, you have to think a little bit differently. And the startup is now taking the problem solution fit and ensure that the solution, which is in the end your product, will also satisfy exactly the market demand. And this is called the product market fit. And the market, so the product should satisfy a market opportunity. And to let you understand a little bit the difference between the problem solution and the product market fit, I will try to give you an example. So during the COVID pandemic, there were been many producers of vaccine, but we all know basically three of them. BioNTech, Moderna, developing the mRNA vaccine, and Novavax, developing the protein vaccine. Now, forget about a moment about the pandemic situation. In a normal market situation, the Novavax product, so the protein, is well known, is based on more of decades of similar products, has a good efficacy safety profile. It's very easy to manipulate. You can stay at room temperature. It doesn't need to be at -80 like the mRNA vaccine. So it has a clear advantage in the normal situation, in a normal market, when safety and efficacy are taken into consideration as a primary demand. Now, during the pandemic situation, that was a little bit different. The customer, governments, they drive a different demand. The demand, the market demand, was not to have an efficient, let's say, a good solution for the problem, was to have a good solution for the problem the fastest possible, was to have millions of these solutions available very fast. And it's there that Pfizer, that BioNTech and Moderna won over Novavax, even if they had a product that on normal condition would be considered at a lower level in terms of market access. This is because BioNTech and Moderna, they understood that they interpret the market better than Novavax, and they started to couple with the giants, Pfizer in the term in BioNTech and Lonza for Moderna, providing a huge capacity in terms of manufacturing and speediness. They came first, they gain all the market. Okay, so that's if you now are working in a project, you have to start that thinking that not only the problem solution is important, but also the product market fit. And if you look to statistics, you will realize that the top one mistake for startup is to build something nobody wants. And what is behind is that you look as a researcher, as an entrepreneur, and you are proud of your idea, very enthusiastic, completely immersed in the project, and you don't look what is happening around. You have to step out from your project and understand that the customer, the people that will buy your solution, they have a completely different perspective on your product, and you have to know them very well. This will allow you also to drive something else, which is called the value proposition. What is the value proposition? The value proposition is the unique value that your solution, your research offer to the customer, and that differentiate from all other people that work, or other competitors that work on the same topic. Therefore, this means that you have to know exactly your solution, and this is what in academia is very, very well done. But you have, if you want to develop a startup, starting knowing also your customer, and in particular, what the customer wants out of your solution. And you have to know your competitors, because you have to be able to identify the single value, the unique value of your solution compared to all the other solutions from the eyes of the customer. And that is very important if you are working on a project and you think there is a potential for developing a startup. Here I provide you a tool which is called the Value Proposition Canvas that you can find in this website here, and that's a nice tool that helps you to craft down and write down the pain point, the gain point of your solution with respect to the customer, your potential customer. And remember, this is very important to understand that the value proposition is not only, there is a different value proposition per every stakeholder involved in the process. A patient will have a different value proposition than a doctor, than an investor, than a payer. And you have to craft all of these value proposition, because you have to have the right way to discuss with all these different stakeholders. Now imagine you are in the lab, you have your idea, you try to investigate whether you have a product market fit. Next step is to test the market fit, to evaluate the value proposition, and now it's time to protect actually your idea. I know that this is something a a little bit tricky in academia, but that's critically important. There are 4 types of intellectual property rights: patent, trademark, copyrights, and trade secrets. We are in the academic environment, we are very well aware about the copyrights because we are giving a copyright license to the journal each time that we publish something. But in the context of a startup, we rather focus on the so-called patent. Patent cover innovation, procedures, products, and it's fundamental to secure an IP rights, a patent on your discovery, because this secures you the exclusivity on working on your topic. That means that you prevent others to copying you. And this is the most important piece of evidence if you want to attract an investment. Without patent, an investor will don't put money on your venture because anyone else can copy you. And if you think about patentability now, there are 3 different aspects for an invention to be patentable. One is the novelty, the non-obviousness, and the utility. The novelty is the concept that should be well understood in the academic environment. Novelty means not publicly disclosed in any form, which includes also speaking or giving a talk to a meeting before the filing date of the patent application. But the second part is very important, before the filing date. That means that the patenting and publishing are not mutually exclusive. And there are strategic timing. First, you file the patent, and second, you publish. And my honest suggestion is to look very close with the tech transfer office. Most universities today have tech transfer offices, and discuss with them your ideas, because they can guide you through this process. And if you do it properly, the delay is very minimal. The delay from filing and publishing is extremely small. So when you write a next paper, ask yourself to file or not to file in order to know whether you should maybe wait a few weeks and submit the patent first. Oops. And now, if you have now protected your IP rights, you should start reflecting about building your team. And the team is the core of the startup success. The team, I would like to mention a quote from Steve Jobs. Great things in business are never done by one person. They are done by a team of people. And I think you all have realized that working in the laboratory. Now, in the context of a startup, there are 2 levels of team. The first one is the co-founders. So the other person that will start from the beginning with you and will really develop from zero your idea. And then you will have the managing team. Remember that the co-founder choice is extremely important. The major stake of your venture should be owned by co-founders that have a very compatible personality. They share the same vision, but they have also some complementarity. You don't aim to have the phenocopy of yourself working on the same project. You want someone that can bring other input to your project. And you will fight with the co-founder. So it's very important to get very well with him or her. And be careful, because about 80% of startups actually fail due to a very weak founding team. Now that you have set your co-founders, you will start thinking about the team. And the team has a lot of possible characteristics, of course, but I would like to drive your attention on something, diversity. And there are a lot of scientists, I mean, even scientists in the science field, the pure science field, and scientists in the business field, they all agree that diversity is a superpower in startup. Diversity means gender diversity, means background diversity, means ethnicity diversity. And this allow you to look at the problem in very different angles, and therefore you are boosting the innovation capacity of your venture. Okay, now you have set the team, and now you have to start thinking about your business model. What is a business model? The business model is the way your startup will create, deliver, and capture the value. So you have to start thinking, and again, there are some canvas in the internet like this one. what is your solution? Who are your customers? Okay, but also how you will bring your solution to the customer. I know that is pretty early on at this stage, but you have to do that. You have to start thinking, this product will be a pills, will be injected, I will distribute through a pharmacy, I will give directly to doctors. You need to start writing down some ideas on that. And also how you provide a value to the customer, and the customer provide a value to you. So you capture value, and this is a monetary capture. So how you get money out of all this business. So this is a business model, the ideas that goes behind. And a business model then concretize in so-called business plan. And the business plan is the first things you do whenever you start a new venture. The business plan defines the strategic steps, the strategic roadmap that your venture will do in order to achieve a certain goal. A business plan covers 5 or more years. And the business plan is the first point if you want to raise money, which is my last part of the talk. Just to briefly tell you about the value of that, this is called like that actually because most of startups die during this period. So you normally create a startup when you are still in an academia, such as, therefore a spin-off rather than a startup, but you are still in academia, you are still having benefit of academic grants. But in a couple of years or 1 year from that point, you will start running out of academic grants. You will start having high financial needs, negative cash flow, which means that you spend money, but you don't gain any money from selling anything because you are still developing your therapy. And you have a very high risk of failure. And in this part of the journey, the value of that, there are other type of source of financing that can bridge the value of that. You can think about 2 main points. On the one side, you do have at the early stage innovation agencies, tech transfer offices, or startup competition that can provide you some grant money in order to start developing your ideas. And then at a certain time point, you have to go to professional investors. Professional investors are, depending on the amount of the ticket size, the amount of money they can put on your venture, they can be business angels, family office, venture capital, corporate venture capitals, and so on. But these people are professional investors. They want their money back in 5-10 years. So it has to be very clear your roadmap. So your business model, your business plan. The professional investors will also ask a participation on your startup. You should not be surprised if at the end of the journey, you will actually own just a minority of your startup. That's part of this business. So now to raise money for startup, science is much less important. What is important is how you plan to achieve your goal. So the business invention and the venture. I've been doing a lot of startup competition, and I can tell you how to have, I don't know, 10 slides of a pitch. One is about science. All the rest is about how you develop your science. And with that, I think my time is over. So I will conclude with my personal recipe to initiate a startup. This is really directed to people that have a very good idea, maybe have discovered something in their laboratories, and they are asking themselves what to do next. So if you have this discovery there, if you have your hand on it, try to step out and to understand whether this idea, this solution is a viable business opportunity. So look at the product market fit, so the willingness of the market, understand your value proposition, so your unique value as compared to other competitors. If everything is there, then try to secure the IP right, publish, build your team, develop and write down a business plan, and with that you can go out and search for money, seek fundings, and network opportunities in this respect are extremely important. And I finish here by leaving you with this sentence from Thomas Edison: the value of an idea lies in the using of the idea, not the idea itself. With that, I would like to thank you all for your attention, and I'm ready to take and answer your question.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It has been a very interesting and indeed a little bit different presentations from the ones that we are used to hear in the recipe book. If you have any questions in the audience, you are welcome to submit them in the chat or in the Q&A. So until then, maybe I can ask you, so in your personal journey in initiating a startup, what do you think has been the most challenging?
The bigger challenge for me was to step out from the research mentality. Because I clearly recall at the beginning when I was presenting the first pitch, the first competition, where you start seeing all the other startups as well, what they do. I was focusing really on the size. I would say, you know, I do something great. This look this scientific data. Well, in the audience, no one was understanding anything because the audience is not the audience we are used to have. They are not doctors. They are not scientists. They don't understand anything about the science. We, in the academia, are the expert. We don't have to defend ourselves. We are the expert. Now we have to defend the way we implement in order to get to a real product. So that was for me the most difficult part. Going out from the mentality of the researcher, trying to defend this project, and step into the mentality of the entrepreneur who looks at the market and try to add value to the market.
Absolutely. We have actually a question here in the Q&A from Sarah Brown. Thank you for sharing your recipe. Can you comment more on when to patent and how to persuade the tech transfer office that it is worth the money to pay for patent filing?
Yeah, well, I think this very much depends on which country you are working on. I can tell you my experiences in Switzerland, and in Switzerland there is a quite dynamic environment in terms of innovation. So the patent office, the tech transfer offices are really reaching you out and they make courses and they try to involve you in a very proactive manner in order to let you understanding all that. So when to publish, when to approach the tech transfer office is extremely soon. As soon as you have an idea that you think it could concretize in something that can have a commercial value, even if you don't have all the data, nothing, you start going there and start discussing with them, with the patent attorney, in order to understand what you should protect and how you should protect. If you do so, you proceed in filing and patent and publishing almost in parallel. By the way, often you use the same manuscript as the base point for the patent. So you will do the same work in any case.
Okay, thank you. We have some more questions here. So what, in your opinion, are the differences between science startups that provide a service versus those that provide a product?
Well, that's of course, what I show you today, it's rather directed to startups that they want to create new drugs, so they will provide a product. Providing a service is a completely different type of business model than a startup that provide a product. And I don't want to say that it's easier somehow, but to me, there is a big difference, which is in the way you raise money, the way you develop your strategy. A service company most likely become a startup when the service is almost ready. So in a couple of years, 1 year from when they start, they will get already revenue in. So the business model is very different. When you are developing a product, which means a drug, for instance, or some other stuff like that, then you have to think about having a very deep part of your journey without money. And so you have a cash need which is much higher.
Yeah, definitely. So one more question here. Thank you very much for your fantastic talk. Could you talk about patents for products that are pure software? Yeah, well, you should go to the tech transfer office to get the official answer, of course. I think softwares, they are covered by copyrights. It's not the patent of
of let me go back to my slides. The copyright, the copyrights, well, I didn't write it there, but are protected by software, to my knowledge. So it's a different type of patenting manner. I don't think software are patentable to the real patents. But again, go to the specialist in IP for that.
Thank you. I think I see no more questions. I think it has been really, really very interesting to hear about this. And of course, it feels a little bit like a different planet for us who are in academia. So I really understand that this transition from the academia to the business, it's not an easy journey, and it can be challenging, but probably also very rewarding.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
it's extremely rewarding, but on the other hand, it's very challenging too.
Sure. So thank you very much for your great talk. It will be available later on YouTube for those who were not able to watch it this time. And don't forget, next time when we have the ESDR kitchen, that will be on the 6th of December. Then we can listen to Hervé Bachelet to talk about the interleukin-36 pathway in inflammatory skin diseases beyond pustular psoriasis. So you are very welcome to listen. And all the previous ESDR Kitchen webcasts are available on the ESDR YouTube channel. And I would also like to remind all of you about the next ESDR annual meeting, which will be held in Lisbon from the 4th to 7th of September 2024. And I hope to see you there. Here are some important dates. So the registration will open in 2024, and the abstract submission, you can see, will be between March and June 2024. But you can already see some information on the ESDR website about this. So with that, I would like to thank you again, Nicolò, for your great presentation. And thank you all who have listened to this episode of ESDR Kitchen today. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.